Hey, everybody. I thought I would borrow Coco's welcome. Hey, everybody. Like, just totally upbeat rather than, hello, and welcome to another edition. This is an edition of the podcast. I'm not Coco.
And I'm not Daltz.
And what we do here at Coco and Daltz is we review movies and also books and music.
And TV shows.
And stuff that people like to enjoy in these trying times. We like to keep it light. We keep the light and feathery approach here at Coco and Daltz.
Well, I don't know if what we're reviewing today is really so light, actually.
No, it's not. So, Coco, tell us, what are we watching this week?
So today we are watching The Old Guard, which is a brand new Netflix original movie that just dropped 2 days ago, if you're listening to this in real time. So we watched it and we are reviewing it for you today. So The Old Guard is about a group of immortals, believe it or not, stunningly based on the name of the show.
The Old Guard. I thought it was going to be like about a retired football player. That's what I thought. Or a basketball player.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But no, instead it's about a group of people who are pretty much immortal, although they do die, although it takes like 6,000 years. So they're basically immortal.
Right.
They are a gang of, there's 4 of them led by Charlize Theron. They go around doing social justice type stuff. They save people. They get recruited by a CIA agent to save a group of girls being held hostage in the Sudan. I believe it's sort of like the Boko Haram incident that happened a few years ago. But it turns out they're actually being double-crossed by the CIA agent.
What?
I know. The CIA is known for being upright and trustworthy.
He's a former CIA agent.
Right. So it's Chiwetel Ejiofor, known
Wow.
for 12 Years a Slave. He got nominated for Best Actor for that.
Could you say that again, please?
Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Look at that.
I hope that's correct.
That's awesome.
So it turns out he has a backstory. His wife had ALS and she died, and he somehow found out about this gang of immortals, and he tells a nefarious big pharma guy about them. And of course, big pharma, being nefarious, wants to test the immortals and figure out how to make
money
off it. So the show is kind of them trying to evade capture by the nefarious big pharma guy. And then it turns out now there's another lady who's young, who's a Marine. Mm-hmm. In Afghanistan. They have some kind of psychic connection. It turns out she's now immortal as well. She got slashed in the throat and miraculously recovered. So Charlize goes and kidnaps her, and they bring her into the gang, just as a couple of the original Old Guard get kidnapped by the big pharma guy. Tests are run on them, and the end of the movie is Charlize and the new girl and the guy in the gang who betrayed them to the CIA agent and the big pharma guy, busting out their buddies and escaping to live out the rest of their lives. And they set it up pretty nicely for a sequel. Yeah. So look for that to come whenever movies can be shot again.
So first of all, there was a lot of slaughtering going on in this movie.
Yeah, there was a very high body count.
There's a huge body count, and so these guys being immortal, they're getting shot all the time.
Right.
And they're just kind of going down, and then they get back up again. There's a lot of bullets that have killed them or would have killed mortal people that come out of their heads eventually, and it's a pretty gory, bloody mess overall. And of course, the immortals have no compunction whatsoever about slaughtering the mortals.
Well, I mean, can't you blame them? Because they've lived through the Middle Ages and, same crap, different century, right? They just want to be persecuted.
So we watched Extraction not long ago. It's a Netflix deal. And I was watching this one and I was thinking, these are not really all that different. It's just a bunch of guys getting together and killing people. And
yeah, definitely.
I think we should change it up at some point because I'm getting a little tired of watching people die. Especially in this day and age where people are dying in real life all over the world, and not in necessarily the same way. But man, oh man, there's a lot of gruesome killings in this and a lot of blood and guts. I think if you're into this kind of thing, if you're in this kind of adventure and immortal superhero kind of thingy, and you're okay with high body count, I think that's fine. To me, it was done well for what it was. Charlize Theron is first class. I'm actually beginning to worry about her though, because of the roles that she's selecting. There must be some rage there that we don't know about. But
I mentioned to Daltz last night when we were watching it that clearly she's a stunningly beautiful woman, but she's kind of eschewed the typical Hollywood leading lady career arc and gone more for ass-kicking action hero, and I actually kind of like it. I think
I don't mind that choice necessarily because I think you don't want to fall into the stereotype or the rut or anything like
where now she's Alicia Silverstone and she's playing the mom in The Babysitter's Club.
Right. Like she's always got short hair. She makes a point now of having her short hair and everything like that. Like this is the same actor who was in Monster and was fantastic in makeup and played a really breakout kind of role. And you were kind of, I think people were kind of expecting a different career trajectory. I don't know what the career trajectory would have been necessarily, because for women it's so challenging. You fall into a pigeonhole and it's hard to get out of that. But
she could have maybe been like a Julia Roberts or something,
right? Like easily, and probably without even trying. Like just kind of be all of a sudden she's in all these movies, and she's apparently been making 2 movies a year, lead and not lead. But the last couple of movies, so there was this one. She was also in the Mad Max reboot, when she played a kick-ass amputee lady in the desert, and then she was also in Atomic Blonde, which was very similar to this movie in terms of she's like this machine who kills people, and I don't even remember the rest of the plot of that one. I just know
she's like a triple agent. She's like American pretending to be British, pretending to be American, or something like that. Right. Like it was crazy.
And a South African pretending to be all those things.
Right.
So I'm beginning to worry about her because I'm wondering if she's got a lot of PTSD or something like that.
Well, she was engaged to Sean Penn. So.
Oh, well, I didn't know that. That explains everything. That explains everything.
All right, stop the podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, pull all that back. Everything I just said was uninformed. But
this is what happens when you're married to a former gossip columnist. Like, I just bust out random tidbits, and you're like, oh, well. Okay.
And this is also what happens when I don't do any research before we jump on the podcast. I don't read the notes that the research department gives us before the podcast.
Well, I told you that I did absolutely no research for this, so you were going to have to do the heavy lifting with, like, the names of the people who played the other roles besides Charlize Theron and Chiwetel Ejiofor. So,
which is like giving explosives to a 3-year-old. Like, that's terrible. There's no way I'm going to do better than you with name pronunciations. So, what did you think, Coco? We haven't really talked about what you thought overall of this blow 'em up, shoot 'em up, the old guard.
Well, I liked it. I liked it in the same vein, and a lot of veins got opened in this movie, let me tell you. Oh, yeah.
Everybody.
But yeah, I didn't plan that. That just came out.
No.
I liked it in the same vein that I liked Extraction. It was mindless, but it wasn't dumb. Right. Like it's like
there is a distinction.
Right.
There is a distinction.
You had to pay attention to it, but it wasn't like some kind of crazy, like we just watched part of an Amazon Prime series on the Black Death that was actually hosted by a professor who teaches, medieval history as her job, and you had to like pay attention to that. And with this,
not so
you
much.
had to pay attention, but it was just like at the very beginning when they got ambushed by the CIA guys. And then suddenly they're getting up. I was like, how are they going to explain this? Are they going to flash back to like 8 days earlier or something?
Right.
And then it goes in a different direction. And you're like, what? Are they wearing like weird full body bulletproof suits or something?
Right.
Because I knew nothing about this movie going into it.
Me neither.
So,
and that's where I think the lack of preparation comes in handy, because I didn't know anything about this movie. I was like, we'll just watch this shoot 'em up that Coco wants to watch. And
it's got Charlize in it.
Yeah, she's great, so I'll watch it. And I want to get valuable relationship points. I want to keep that ledger in the positive. And I didn't know anything about it. And then when the scenes open the way they do, and there's massacre of the heroes, you're like, what? And you're this. I was thinking the same thing. It was like, 5 weeks ago, this is where it started. And I was like, are they dead? Is that kind of the way that it's going to happen? But then I was really impressed the way it developed from there, and that they were immortal. It's like, oh, I didn't see that coming.
I almost expected them to pull off like a rubber like face like in Scooby-Doo, and then and that was like
it wasn't for you kids,
right?
I would have gotten away with it.
And the action, like Charlize is a badass. Like she kicked some major ass in this movie. I was in awe. I was like, I wish I could kick ass like she does.
Oh, I'm glad you can't. In the middle of the night, all of a sudden I've got the covers, too many covers or something like that, and Coco's booting my butt out of the bed.
Like Daltz gets like a haymaker,
Right.
like in the middle of the night because he's hogging the
Because I'm
covers.
snoring or something like that.
Right. So yeah, the action sequences, like they were choreographed really well.
Yep.
I enjoyed the storyline. I thought that was good.
Mm-hmm.
The big pharma guy, he was a little bit of like an over-the-top comical villain, but these are based on graphic novels. So you're probably going to have a little bit of an OTT villain for that. They did find like...
OTT, look at you.
Yeah, they did find like the strangest looking British person not named Benedict Cumberbatch they could to fill that role.
You know who just reminded me, I just thought of it, who he reminds me of, is John C. Reilly, only with like eyes closer together.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
And he was, I actually liked the fact that the villain in this was corporate greed and it was pharma, because I noticed when we're watching these movies, we're increasingly running out of bad guys. Like it's like it used to be the Germans, and then it used to be the Russians, and then it used to be in one of the Lethal Weapon movies, it was the South Africans with apartheid and everything like that. So you're trying to pick people that people can hate around the world, the Libyans or whatever it happens to be. And it's like, we're running out of bad guys. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, yeah, big pharma. That's a pretty good one. And so he was like that pharma dude who was...
Yeah.
I think he was sort of...
Shrekley or Skrelly or
Who's
something
in jail
like that.
now for evading taxes or something like that.
Yeah, who jacked up the price of EpiPens
because
by
he could.
8 million% or something like that.
Yeah, he said because I could. And then he ended up buying some album by... some one copy album from Wu-Tang Clan or something like just like a dirt bag for sure.
Yeah.
And this character seemed to have that kind of, wearing a hoodie and was in his early 30s probably and had that kind of vibe to him. So I like the fact that we've got a new villain. What was interesting, and we saw this in the movie and we talked about it when we were watching it, was one of the major flaws was the scene in London
at the very end.
Near the climax of the movie, and there's nobody on the streets of London.
Okay, so I lived in London and I have been back many times, and based on the shots from the street, I think where that lab is close to Parliament. And though the streets of Westminster are never that deserted. Like, it was crazy. I was like, this has to be like some kind of like nuclear apocalypse fallout for the streets of London to be that deserted.
Or it was filmed now in pandemic times.
Yeah, like, and when they all leave at the end, like, then suddenly as they're like driving off in their minivan, like suddenly like people start walking in from all different directions, and now you've got the cops like zooming in with like like the European siren, and I'm like, London is the CCTV capital of the world.
Right.
Like, how are they going to get out? So I was like freaking out during the movie. I was like, there is no way that the streets of London would be that deserted in the middle of the day. Like,
listener, it was awful. I thought I was going to get flipped. The table had already been flipped, and I thought I was going to get flipped. That's how bad it was.
Time for me to practice some of my Charlize ass-kicking skills.
No, because I'm going to be sitting in the couch beside you watching the movie, and I'm going to get like a chop to the thorax, and that's going to be it for me.
So was there, aside from the gruesome violence, was there anything that
was threaded throughout the movie every 3 minutes?
Was there anything that you especially disliked or especially liked?
No, I mean, it was just kind of in the middle for me. I think, like, overall, I would say, as far as this genre goes, it was fine. It was good. Charlize, I think, she is so badass in this, and I buy her being 6,000 years old in terms of the angst and pain that she carries over all those years. But I mean, I don't know. I don't have anything to compare that to.
She did have one line, something about when she was talking to the new girl said something about forgetting and, being the worst thing. And Charlize was like, no, it's not what like time takes away. It's what time replaces the stuff you want to remember with. And I was like, oh, yeah, on the nose. On the nose, see.
I think there were some groaners in there.
You're like, yeah, no, that was really cheesy. What are you talking about?
No, that was a good one, but there were some groaners in there along the same lines. Like they were the vocabulary versions of the abandoned London streets. So I was like, what happened there? Like that wasn't, somebody's looking over and saying, well, we've got to do this. Like there was a couple of cliches in there. Overall, it was pretty good. But there was a couple of scenes where I was like, oh, come on. Like, just, no. Why did you have to do that? It's like when you're in one of these movies, somebody says, I'm too old for this crap.
Yeah,
or I can't believe this is happening. Like there's all these certain lines that are in all these movies. And there was a couple in this particular movie that was similar to that. But this movie was not for me. I'm not in this demographic classification. I think this is more for superhero movie people and for people who love the shoot 'em ups. There wasn't a lot of cerebral discussion in this one.
Whereas I would give it a solid B. I enjoyed it. It was escapist entertainment. The storyline was interesting. It was 2 hours and 5 minutes long. It didn't drag for me. It seemed like it moved along at a pretty good clip. Like it was interesting enough. I thought all the performances were really good. I thought the fight sequences were really good. If you're squeamish, maybe this isn't the movie for you. But if you're just looking for something to knock out pretty fast on a weekend or a weeknight, I'd recommend it.
Yeah, if you like Extraction, you'll like this one.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the same kind of movie.
Yeah.
With an identifiable, superhero although this one, it was excusable if they got hit by a car and then they bounced back. Whereas in Extraction, that was ridiculous, where they're getting hit by cars and they're getting battered around. It's like, oh, I feel so bad. Okay, come on, punch me.
So I'm going to spoil this. At the end, on the deserted streets of London, one of the immortals goes out a high-rise window and falls into a car on the deserted streets of London below.
Yes.
And you can see the
bones.
The disfigured. I mean, a body just hit a car at a high rate of speed going
from
out
about 35 flights up.
Right. So you can imagine what that body looked like, and then you can see it, they will hold up their hand and you can see how it's just completely mangled, and then you see it start to go back, and I was like, oh,
regenerate.
Yeah, I had to look away at that point. Like, of all the violence in that movie, that was the time I had to look away.
Well, and the neck that gets slashed and everything like that, and the one guy gets opened up when the headquarters gets attacked, and you see his innards and everything like that. It's like some of it was, not for the squeamish. Although those effects were really good. Some of the other effects were not so good. Like there was a scene where like a DC-8 is taking off from the desert, and it's clearly not. It's clearly drawn. It's an animated airplane. Like I'm looking at it, and it's like there's no sun reflecting off this plane. There's no motion to anything. Like, why am I busting the guys on this? I'm not even a movie guy, and I'm like, that plane doesn't look real.
Netflix just had to
they slapped it together.
Yeah, they had to rush out some content for all the people stuck at home streaming. So
well, it was sort of like one step ahead of when you have all those a pad of paper and somebody writes an airplane on it, and then they flip the pad and make the airplane fly. It was just a little bit above that to me, because I have to say I'm so spoiled, because a lot of the effects these days are so great, and this one was not in that class. So there was some hits and misses for this one to me, and I'm looking at this movie probably more critically than is intended, and then more people in the audience are doing, because they're probably just sitting back there going, blow them up real good, I don't care.
That's kind of what I was doing though.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. So they're not looking at it like I am, but so granted, it's not the same prism here.
Valuable relationship points deducted.
I think I just insulted your favorite thing. So 2 shell casings up for you, Coco?
Yeah.
I'd say 1 up and 1 down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's worth your while.
It's 2 hours. I thought it was a little long myself. I know you didn't think it was long, but I thought it was a little too long. But maybe that's just because I was subjected to it. Although that was
wow,
but that was
major valuable relationship points deducted.
Let's go again, because the one previous to that was Babysitter's Club.
Oh, that is true.
Which was also not my choice.
All right.
So eventually we'll get around to a movie that I want to watch, and then Coco can just savage it, just tear it apart. Why is the rebel in The Breakfast Club so unbelievable? That wasn't actually a very good Coco impression.
So on that note, to hear me talk like that in the future, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Google Play, and YouTube.
I'm actually glad that you don't have the Charlize Theron training right now because you would have chopped me.
Yeah, well, just wait till later.
Yikes. Help, listener, help.
You can leave us a review. You can rate us on Apple Podcasts. We would appreciate it if you would do that, only if it's nice, though. You can also get a hold of us at cocoandalts@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at cocoandalts, and you can find us on the web at cocoandalts.com, where I believe Daltz has reviewed this very movie that we're talking about right now.
Wow. How did you know that? Did you look at the site today?
No, but you told me you were going to do it last night.
Oh,
so.
I didn't do it last night. I got sidetracked. But I did it today.
Oh, okay.
So it is on the site.
All right, well, that's good then. I told you I was going to do no preparation for this show.
And many other shows that we have watched are also reviewed on there, and books and music and stuff like that.
So chickadee, check it out.
And one thing that we're not reviewing is each other's cooking.
Which is probably good because Daltz has been to the hospital many times.
That's not true at all. Okay, I think we've padded the end here long enough. So
Alrighty.
For another edition of the podcast, thank you for joining us, everybody. Thanks for putting up with us. We love listener.
Word to your mother.
For another week at the podcast, I'm not Coco.
And I'm not Daltz.